The winter of 2022 blanketed our small Oregon town in a thick layer of snow on January 15th. The crunch under my boots mingling with the crisp air scented with wood smoke and pine. I, Ethan, a 35-year-old history teacher, trudged home from school after a lesson on the Civil War, my shoulders heavy, but my heart warmed by my students' enthusiasm. Waiting for me were my wife, Claire, a nurse at the local hospital, and our 3-year-old daughter, Mia, whose giggles were the sweetest sound after a long day. Our modest house, with its creaky wooden floors and cozy fireplace, had always been our sanctuary, a place where our 6-year marriage felt unshakable, until recently. Lately, something had shifted. Claire's late shifts at the hospital grew more frequent. Her phone buzzed with texts she quickly hid, her smiles forced when she thought I wasn't looking. That evening, as snow tapped against the window, I watched her tuck me into bed, her gentle hands a contrast to the tension I felt. After she fell asleep on the couch, her phone lit up on the coffee table, and curiosity, or maybe dread, drove me to glance at it. The screen revealed a thread with Dr. Nathan, a surgeon she worked with. "I can't stop thinking about you," she'd written. "Let's plan that trip next weekend?" His reply, "Can't wait. You deserve this." My stomach dropped, the room's warmth clashing with the ice in my veins. I set the phone down, my hands trembling. The fires crackle a mocking backdrop to my racing thoughts. 6 years with Claire, her laughter at our first date, the quiet nights planning Mia's future, now tainted by this betrayal. Nathan, with his charming demeanor at hospital events, had slipped into our lives, and I hadn't seen it. I retreated to the kitchen, the cold tile underfoot a shock, and poured a glass of water. The taps dripped a steady pulse. Mia's soft breathing from her room anchored me, but the words on that screen looped in my mind. I didn't shout or wake Claire. Instead, I sat by the window, the snow reflecting the moonlight, plotting my next move. Revenge wasn't my nature, but the historian in me knew history was full of quiet reckonings. Perhaps I could craft one of my own. The next morning, January 16th, the sun barely pierced the gray sky. The house silent, except for Mia's chatter as Claire made breakfast. The aroma of pancakes filled the air, but it tasted like ash in my mouth as I watched her, her movements mechanical, her eyes avoiding mine. I thought of our wedding day, her in white, promising forever, and felt a pang, the betrayal a knife twisting deeper. At school, I taught about strategy in wartime, my mind drifting to how I could use my knowledge. An anonymous tip to the hospital about Nathan's professionalism, maybe a planted note to sow doubt, ideas formed, dark and deliberate. The classroom's chalk dust hung in the air, and I knew this would change us, but the pain demanded action. The snow outside a witness to my brewing storm. By evening, the fire roared again, Claire humming to Mia, oblivious to my turmoil. I sat with my laptop, the screen's glow a lifeline, researching hospital complaint procedures, my fingers hesitant but driven. The betrayal wasn't just hers, it was Nathan's, too, a friend who'd shared dinners with us. I thought of Mia's future, her innocence, and felt a resolve harden. This wouldn't be a scream in the night, but a calculated strike, a lesson from history books I'd teach them both. The snow fell heavier, blanketing the town, and I knew the path ahead would be cold but necessary, step by step, toward a justice I'd define. The days after discovering Claire's text on January 16th, 2022, stretched into a cold, deliberate silence, the Oregon snow piling higher outside our modest house, the air sharp with the scent of pine and wood smoke from the fireplace. I, Ethan, sat at the kitchen table late that night, the wood cold under my hands, the glow of my laptop casting shadows, as I stared at the hospital's online complaint form. The words from her phone, "I can't stop thinking about you," and Nathan's eager reply, burned in my mind, a betrayal that turned our 6-year marriage into a hollow shell. Mia slept upstairs, her soft breathing a tether, but Claire's humming as she washed dishes felt like a lie, the clink of plates a mocking rhythm. I knew I couldn't confront her yet. My plan needed precision, a lesson from the history books I taught. The next morning, January 17th, the sun struggled through the gray sky, the house quiet except for the crackle of the fire I'd stoked. I taught my Civil War class, my voice steady as I lectured on strategic maneuvers, but my thoughts churned with tactics of my own. At lunch, I researched hospital policies in the teacher's lounge. The smell of stale coffee a backdrop. Drafting an anonymous email accusing Nathan of negligence. A vague but damaging claim about a misdiagnosed patient. My fingers hesitated over the keys, the weight of deceit heavy. But the image of Claire's secret smile pushed me forward. Back home, the snow muffled the world, and I printed the email. The printer's hum a quiet accomplice, tucking it into an envelope with a fake return address scavenged from old mail. Wednesday, January 18th, I drove to the post office. The car's heater blasting against the chill, the road slick with ice. Dropping the letter into the slot felt like releasing a shadow, the clunk of it falling a decisive sound. At home, Claire was on the phone, her voice low, and I caught Nathan, before she hung up, her eyes darting to me with guilt. The fireplace's warmth clashed with the cold in my chest, and I retreated to my study. The creak of the floorboards a rhythm to my plotting. I crafted a fake note, scribbled on scrap paper, mimicking Nathan's handwriting from a hospital event invite, suggesting he'd been unfaithful to Claire with another nurse. The act felt wrong, the ink smudging under my sweaty palm, but the historian in me saw it as a psychological siege, a way to turn their trust against them. Friday, January 20th, I waited for an opportunity. Claire left for her shift, her goodbye kiss perfunctory, and I slipped the note into her coat pocket, while Mia napped, the fabric soft under my fingers. The house fell silent, the snow outside a blanket, and I sat by the window. The pines sent a reminder of our early winters together, her laughter, our plans, now ashes. I imagined the note's discovery, the doubt it would sow, and felt a grim satisfaction tempered by nausea. That evening, she returned, her face pale, and snapped at Mia over a spilled juice, a sign the plan was working. The fire's crackle mocked my unease, and I wondered if this vengeance would heal or haunt me. Saturday, January 21st, the snow stopped, the sky clearing to reveal a brittle blue, the house's warmth a contrast to my turmoil. I overheard Claire on the phone, her voice tight. "Nathan, what's this about another nurse?" And felt a surge of victory, the note's poison taking root. But as I watched Mia play, her toys scattered, the guilt crept in. 6 years with Claire, Mia's birth, all undone by my hands. I sat with my journal, the pen scratch a release, writing the plan, the pain, the moral line I crossed. The snow glistened outside, a witness to my dual nature, teacher and avenger, and I knew this was just the beginning, the seeds of retribution sown, step by step, toward an uncertain end. The week following my revenge's first moves on January 21st, 2022, unfolded with a tense stillness, the Oregon snow glistening under a pale sun, the air biting with the scent of frost and distant firewood. I, Ethan, sat by the kitchen window of our modest house, the glass cold against my fingertips, the fireplace's warmth a stark contrast to the chill in my heart. The anonymous complaint and the fake note I'd planted had set wheels in motion, and Claire's strained demeanor since Saturday hinted at the fallout. Mia played nearby, her toys clattering softly, a reminder of the innocence I was protecting, but the weight of my actions, subtle yet destructive, began to press on me, the creak of the floorboards echoing my unease. Monday, January 23rd, Claire came home late, her coat dusted with snow, her face tight with anger. "Nathan's under review at the hospital," she snapped, tossing her bag down, the thud a sharp note in the quiet. I feigned surprise, the fire's crackle masking my racing pulse, but inside I felt a grim satisfaction. The complaint had worked. She paced, muttering about a baseless accusation, and I caught the glint of her phone as she texted, her fingers quick. The note's poison was spreading, and that night I overheard her call, "Nathan, why didn't you tell me?" Her voice breaking, a sign of doubt. The kitchen tile felt icy under my bare feet as I listened, the pines sent from the window, a bitter reminder of our early winters, now tainted. Wednesday, January 25th, the tension thickened. Claire was distracted, snapping at Mia over spilled milk, the clatter of the cup a jarring sound. I watched from the couch, the fabric rough against my hands, as she scrolled through her phone, her brow furrowed. Later, she confronted me. "Have you heard anything strange at work about Nathan?" Her eyes searching mine. I shook my head, the lie tasting sour, the fireplace's warmth clashing with my guilt. That evening, a hospital email arrived, addressed to staff, hinting at an investigation into Nathan's conduct. I read it over her shoulder. The screen's glow a silent victory, but my stomach churned. 6 years with Claire, Mia's laughter, all unraveling by my design. Friday, January 27th, the fallout peaked. Claire stormed in, tears streaking her face, and threw her phone down. Nathan ended it. He thinks I betrayed him with that note. The note I'd planted, mimicking his hand, had done its work, turning their trust to ash. I held Mia close, her warmth a shield as Claire sobbed, her word a mix of rage and regret. I never meant for this. The snow outside muffled the world. The pines sent a mocking echo, and I felt a hollow triumph. Nathan's reputation was scarred, their affair likely over. But the cost gnawed at me. The fire's crackle a reminder of the home I'd once cherished. I retreated to my study, the creak of the door's solitary sound, and journaled, the pen scratch a release, wrestling with the morality of my revenge. Sitting there, the laptop's glow a lifeline, I replayed the plan, the complaint, the note, the silence I'd maintained. The historian in me admired the strategy, a psychological campaign worthy of ancient generals, but the father in me questioned the price. Mia's giggles in the living room filtered in, a beacon of purity, and I knew this victory was bittersweet. The snow fell heavier, blanketing the town, and I stared at the journal, the words blurring, pain, anger, guilt. The ripple effect of my actions was real. Claire's tears a mirror to my own, and I wondered if this path would lead to healing or a deeper wound. Step by step, toward an uncertain dawn. The days after Claire's breakdown on January 27th, 2022, dragged with a heavy silence, the Oregon snow crusting over with a brittle sheen, the air sharp with the scent of frozen earth and lingering wood smoke. I, Ethan, sat in the dim living room of our modest house, the couch's fabric rough against my palms, the fireplace's dying embers casting faint shadows. The fallout from my revenge, the anonymous complaint and the fake note, had deepened, Claire's tear-streaked face and Nathan's sudden absence a testament to my success. But the victory fell hollow, the creak of the floorboards under Mia's footsteps a reminder of the innocence I'd risked, and the guilt began to coil tighter, the winter frost mirroring the chill in my soul. Monday, January 30th. Claire barely spoke, her movement mechanical as she prepared breakfast, the sizzle of bacon a stark contrast to the tension. She'd received a call the previous night, her voice low. They're suspending Nathan pending investigation. And I felt a surge of triumph, the complaint's impact clear. But her eyes, red-rimmed, met mine briefly, and I turned away, the kitchen table cold under my hands. At school, I taught about the ethics of war, my voice steady, but my mind replayed her sobs, the notes lie, another nurse, turning their love to dust. The classroom's chalk dust hung heavy, and I wondered if my strategy had gone too far. The snow outside a silent witness. Wednesday, February 1st, the tension broke. Claire confronted me, her voice shaking. "Ethan, did you do this?" Holding a hospital memo about Nathan's suspension. I denied it, the lie bitter on my tongue, the fireplace's warmth clashing with my racing heart. She found the note in her coat again, its words haunting her, and accused Nathan of deceit, their texts now cold. The living room felt smaller, the pines sent from the window a mocking echo of our past, and I saw the cost, her trust in him shattered, but my own integrity fraying. Mia clung to my leg, her warmth a lifeline, and I retreated to the study. The doors creak a solitary sound, the laptop's glow a refuge as I journaled, the pen scratch a release. Thursday, February 2nd, the news came. Nathan resigned, a brief article in a local paper citing personal reasons, and Claire's silence grew deafening. She packed a bag, muttering about staying with a friend, her departure a quiet storm. The front doors click a final note. I held Mia, her tears soaking my shirt, the house's warmth fading as a reality hit. My revenge had driven her away, the snow outside a blank canvas for my regret. I sat by the window, the frost tracing patterns, and thought of our wedding. Her vows, our laughter, now a memory I destroyed. The journal filled with doubt, the words blurring, pain, victory, guilt, and I questioned if this was justice or a deeper wound, the winter night a witness to my unraveling resolve. The study's quiet pressed in, the laptop's hum a faint pulse, and I replayed the plan. The complaint, the note, the silence I'd maintained. The historian in me saw a successful campaign, a psychological victory, but the father in me ached for Mia's lost ability, Claire's lost presence. I thought of Nathan's fall, Claire's tears, and felt the weight of my choices. The snow's stillness a mirror to my frozen heart. The path I'd chosen was working, but at what cost? I held Mia closer, her breathing a soft rhythm, and knew the next step, whether to stop or press on, loomed large, step by step, toward a reckoning I couldn't yet face. The days after Claire's departure on February 2nd, 2022, settled into a stark quiet, the Oregon snow beginning to thaw under a weak February sun, the air carrying the damp scent of melting ice and faint pine. I, Ethan, sat in the empty living room of our modest house, the couch's fabric worn under my hands, the fireplace cold and silent, its absence a mirror to my hollow chest. Mia clung to me, her small frame a warm anchor, her toys scattered like remnants of a life I'd disrupted. The fallout from my revenge, Nathan's resignation, Claire's exit, loomed large, the weight of my actions pressing down, and I faced a critical choice: to press on with my plan, seek forgiveness, or turn inward to heal, the winter thaw a symbol of the change I needed. Friday, February 3rd. The house felt alien, the creak of the floorboards a lonely sound as I moved through it. I found Claire's note on the kitchen table. I need space. I'll call about Mia. Her handwriting shaky, a final sting. The kitchen tile was cold underfoot, the faint smell of last night's dinner a bitter reminder, and I held Mia tighter, her whimpers breaking my resolve. At school, I taught about moral dilemmas in history, my voice steady, but my mind churned with my own. The classroom's chalk dust hung in the air, and I considered stopping, calling Claire, admitting my role, but the historian in me resisted, seeing the plan as a victory yet to be completed. Monday, February 6th, I received a call from the hospital admin, a curt voice asking if I'd heard rumors about Nathan. I denied it, the lies souring my tongue, the phone's hum a tense pulse. The thaw outside softened the snow, the damp air seeping to the window, and I sat with my journal, the pen scratch a release, writing of the guilt, the triumph, the cost of Mia. I thought of our wedding, Claire's vows, our laughter, now a memory I'd shattered, and felt a tear slip, the silence deafening. The laptop's glow offered escape, and I researched reconciliation, the screen a lifeline, but the urge to finish Nathan lingered, a dark thread in my mind. Wednesday, February 8th, the decision crystallized. Mia drew a picture of us, her crayon scraping the paper, and asked, "Where's Mommy?" Her voice a knife. I held her, the warmth a call to stop, the house's quiet a mirror to my soul. I drafted an email to Claire. "I'm sorry. Let's talk about Mia." The words hesitant. The send button a threshold. The fireplace, unlit, stood cold. The thaw outside a promise of renewal, and I felt the moral weight shift. Revenge had cost too much. The journal filled with resolve. The pen a tool of healing, and I knew stopping was my next step. The winter fading into a chance for redemption. Step by step, toward a path I'd yet to define. Sitting by the window, the damp air cool on my face, I replayed the plan, the complaint, the note, the silence. The historian in me saw a campaign's end, but the father in me yearned for Mia's stability, Claire's return, even if just for our daughter. I thought of Nathan's fall, Claire's tears, and felt the burden lift slightly, the thaw a metaphor for my softening heart. The choice to halt, to seek peace, was mine, and as Mia's laughter returned, a fragile hope took root, the house a witness to my crossroads, step by step, toward a healing I desperately needed. The days after my decision to stop on February 8th, 2022, brought a fragile calm. The Oregon snow melting into slush under a pale February sun, the air dammed with the scent of wet earth and fading pine. I, Ethan, sat in the living room of our quiet house, the couch's fabric soft under my hands, the fireplace rekindled with a gentle warmth that eased a chill in my bones. Mia played nearby, her crayon scratching paper, a sign of her resilience, while Claire's absence left an echo I couldn't ignore. My email to her, "I'm sorry. Let's talk about Mia. Hung unanswered, and I resolved to take steps toward reconciliation. The winter melt a metaphor for the softening of my heart, though regret still lingered like a shadow. Thursday, February 9th. I called Claire. The phones ring a nervous pulse. The house's silence amplifying my hesitation. She answered, her voice cautious. "Ethan?" And I stumbled through an apology, asking to meet for Mia's sake. She agreed, her tone guarded, and we set a time for Saturday at a local cafe. The kitchen tile felt cool underfoot as I hung up, the damp air seeping through the window, and I thought of our early days. Her smile at our first dinner, our vows, now a memory I'd nearly destroyed. At school, I taught about forgiveness and history, my voice steady, but my mind rehearsed the meeting. The classroom's chalk dust a quiet witness to my intent. Saturday, February 11th. The cafe's warmth welcomed us. The aroma of coffee a brief comfort as Claire sat across from me, her eyes tired but searching. Mia clung to her, a bridge between us, and I spoke. "I messed up, pushed you away with my silence." I didn't confess the revenge, the complaint, the note, but offered to co-parent, the clink of cups of rhythm to our fragile truce. She nodded, tears welling. "I hurt you, too," and we agreed on a schedule for Mia, the damp street outside a backdrop to our tentative peace. Back home, the fireplace's crackle soothed me, and I journaled, the pen scratch a release, writing of the meeting, the guilt, a step toward healing. Monday, February 13th, I visited a counselor. The office's sterile sent a contrast to my nerves, her gnawed a steady presence. I spoke of betrayal, the revenge, the guilt, the words tumbling out as I sought guidance. "Let go of the past," she advised, and I felt a shift, the damp air outside a promise of spring. At home, I cooked with Mia, the sizzle of pancakes a triumph, her laughter a balm, and thought of Claire's tears, Nathan's fall, the cost I'd paid. The laptop's glow offered new projects, a future focus, and I knew this was my path. Tuesday, February 14th, Valentine's Day dawned clear. The house's warmth a sanctuary. I gave Mia a small heart drawing, her smile of victory, and reflected on the year, pain, revenge, now hope. The email from Claire, "Thanks for today. Let's keep this for Mia," arrived, a sign of progress. The winter milk glistened outside, and I sat by the window, the journal in hand, writing of redemption, the fireplace a witness to my renewal, step by step, toward a life rebuilt. The days after Valentine's Day on February 14th, 2022, brought a subtle shift, the Oregon winter loosening its grip, the snow melting into muddy patches, the air carrying the fresh scent of damp soil and lingering pine. "Hi, Ethan." Sat in the living room of our quiet house, the couch's fabric familiar under my hands, the fireplace's gentle warmth a steady comfort as I adjusted to this new chapter. Mia's laughter filled the space, her toys scattered, a sign of her resilience, while Claire's email, "Thanks for today. Let's keep this for Mia," offered a fragile bridge. I focused on solidifying my path, building a routine with Mia, deepening my healing through counseling, and reclaiming my life, the fading winter a backdrop to my growing strength. Wednesday, February 15th. I established a schedule, the kitchen table hub as I helped Mia with a simple puzzle, the wood warm under my palms. The damp air seeped through the window, and I cooked dinner, the sizzle of chicken a ritual, her chatter a balm. At school, I taught about resilience in post-war societies, my voice firm. The classroom's chalk dust a quiet ally as I poured energy into my lessons. The counselor session that evening, the office's neutral sent a contrast to my nerves, reinforced my progress. "You're finding balance," she said, and I left with a lighter step, the muddy streets outside mirrored to my thawing heart. Friday, February 17th. I met Claire at Park, the playground's wet grass squishing underfoot, Mia's joy on the swings of bridge between us. We spoke briefly, her eyes softer. Mia needs us both, and agreed on a custody plan, the damp air witness to our truce. Back home, the fireplace crackled, and I journaled, the pen scratch a release, writing of the meeting, the guilt fading, a future taking shape. The laptop's glow offered new coding projects, a creative outlet. And I felt a surge of purpose, the house's warmth a sanctuary from the past. Sunday, February 19th. I took Mia to visit my parents. The drive through thawing field to balm, the air rich with the smell of wet earth. Their embrace was warm. Proud of you, son. And we shared stories, the kitchen table a haven. Mia's giggles with my mom easy ache. And I reflected on Claire's betrayal. Nathan's fall. The revenge I'd halted. Memories I could now release. The return home. The fireplace's hum of comfort. Solidified my resolve. The muddy yard outside a sign of renewal. Monday, February 20th. I woke to a clearer sky. The house is silent, a relief. The fireplace a steady beat. I stood longer without strain, a physical milestone, and cooked with Mia. The sizzle of eggs a triumph. The email from Claire. Mia's doing well. Thanks. Arrived, a step forward, and I taught with renewed vigor. The classroom a space of growth. The winter waned, offering hope, and I knew my next step. Thriving fully, lay ahead, the house a witness to my new foundation, step by step, toward a life reclaimed. The week after solidifying my new path on February 20th, 2022, unfolded with a quiet transformation, the Oregon winter relinquishing its hold, the snow melting into muddy patches that glistened under a tentative February sun. The air carried the fresh, earthy scent of budding soil mingled with the fading aroma of pine, a promise of spring on the horizon. I, Ethan, sat in the living room of our modest house, the couch's worn fabric a familiar comfort beneath my hands, the fireplace's gentle warmth seeping into the room, a steady companion as the season shifted. Mia's laughter filled the space, her colorful drawings taped haphazardly to the walls, a testament to her resilience and joy, while Claire's email. Mia's happy, thanks. Let's keep this for her. Offered a fragile but growing bridge between us. This week, I achieved full closure, reconciling the jagged edges of my past, the betrayal by Claire with Nathan, the revenge I'd unleashed, the guilt that had gnawed at me, and stepped boldly into a future laced with hope, the thawing landscape outside a mirror to the renewal stirring within me. Tuesday, February 21st. I woke to softer light filtering to the curtains, the house's silence a sanctuary that wrapped around me like a balm. The window framed a world tinged with the first hints of green, and I rose, walking unassisted to the kitchen, the floor's familiar creak a quiet victory that echoed in my chest. I cooked with Mia, the sizzle of pancakes filling the air with a comforting rhythm, her small hands helping with the batter, her chatter a melody that lifted my spirits. At school, I taught a lesson on renewal after the Civil War, my voice resonant with newfound conviction, the classroom's chalk dust swirling gently as I shared stories of resilience with my students. The counselor session that evening, held in an office with its neutral, sterile scent, reinforced my progress. "You're finding your footing, Ethan," she said with a warm nod, and I left with a lighter step, the muddy yard outside a tangible sign of the thaw mirroring my heart softening. Thursday, February 23rd, I met Claire at the park, the wet grass squishing softly underfoot as Mia darted toward the swings, her joy a bridge between us. The damp air carried the faint tang of earth, and we sat on a bench, the cold with a contrast of the warmth of our conversation. We spoke of Mia's needs, her tone steady yet softer. She needs us both. Ethan, we can make this work. And I felt the last vestiges of my anger dissolve, replaced by a mutual understanding. I apologized again, not for the revenge I'd hidden, but for the silence that had fueled our rift, and she nodded, tears welling briefly before she blinked them away. Back home, the fireplace crackled with renewed life, its glow casting dancing shadows, and I settled with my journal, the pen scratch a release as I wrote the meeting, the guilt fading like the winter snow, a future taking shape in the lines. The laptop's glow beckoned with new lesson plans and coding ideas, a creative outlet that fueled my sense of purpose, and I thought of our wedding day, her vows spoken under a canopy of flowers, our shared dreams, now a memory I could honor without the sting of pain. Friday, February 24th, I hosted a small gathering, the house alive with the laughter of colleagues, the aroma of homemade bread wafting through the rooms, a triumph of normalcy. Elena, a co-worker with a bright smile, praised my resilience. "You're an inspiration, Ethan. Look how far you've come," and I felt a community forming around me, the warm but stark contrast of the isolation I'd endured. Mia played with the guests, her giggles a victory song, and I watched her, her small figure a beacon of light amid the chatter. I reflected on Nathan's fall from grace, Claire's tearful departure, the revenge I'd halted, each a lesson that carved me into who I was becoming. The muddy streets outside glistened under the streetlights, a promise of spring's arrival, and I knew this circle of friends was my new foundation, a support I hadn't realized I needed until now. Saturday, February 25th. I woke to a clear dawn, the house's silent relief that settled deep in my bones, the fireplace's steady hum a comforting beat. I stood tall, the crutches a distant memory tucked away in a closet, and cooked with Mia, the sizzle of eggs a celebration of our bond, her laughter blending with the morning light. The email from Claire, "Mia's doing well, thanks. Let's keep this positive for her," arrived, a final thread mended in our co-parenting tapestry, and I felt a surge of gratitude. At school, I taught with renewed passion. The classroom a space of purpose where I share my growth through history's lessons, the chalk dust a quiet partner in my journey. The thaw brought a renewal, the muddy patches outside transforming into patches of green, and I looked ahead, thriving with Mia, teaching with heart, healing with each step, knowing the next chapter was mine to write. The house, once a battleground pain, now stood as a witness to my dawn, step by step, toward a life fully embraced and unburdened by the shadows of the past.